Welcome to the fourth episode of the Renaissance series, Amplifying Everything Banned in Tibet. And that is the original concept and the principle behind the Renaissance series. As Tibet remains an occupied country under Chinese rule, there are many things that are censored in Tibet, and there are many things that are banned in Tibet by the Chinese government. And our job through these series is to amplify the Tibetan people's voices that are otherwise being silenced by the Chinese government. There are a few reasons why we decided to focus on language and freedom, and the connection between language and freedom, and particularly because of everything that's been happening in Tibet in October and in recent weeks. And before I get to that, I just wanted to note that the Renaissance series is actually, I think we started this about 3 or 4 months back, and although for us this is the fourth episode, it's been replicated in many other places now by national networks and chapters of Students of Free Tibet, and some of the places where people have held Renaissance series episodes. I think they've held an episode in India, they've held one in Canada, in Toronto, and SFT UK has held 2 episodes by now, and SFT Sydney has held an episode in Australia also. So we are really happy to see this movement growing, because we understand that in Tibet there is this incredible renaissance taking place in terms of cultural revival and cultural growth that is being witnessed in spite of the crackdown, in spite of the repression that China is exercising in Tibet. So we can also see that the series is having an impact in terms of making the Tibetan Renaissance known to the world, and also an impact in terms of putting pressure on the Chinese government. And we don't want to imply any direct kind of relationship, but basically, in some of the past episodes, we have prominently highlighted some of the Tibetan writers, including very prominently Shogdung and Gesang Tsuti, 2 Tibetan writers who were detained by the Chinese government for the last many months. Shogdung since May, Gesang Tsuti since July, for things that they have written, for their critique of the Chinese government. And naturally, we were relieved and actually very delighted to hear on October 15th and October 16th that Shogdung was released and Gesang Tsuti was released. And I think this is a great victory for the Tibetan people and our supporters who have been promoting their cases, raising the issue of their arrest, and showing the world why their arrest is unjust and a travesty against human rights. So I just wanted to share this with you as a piece of good news. But at the same time, other writers in Tibet still remain in jail. Starting from October 19th, thousands of Tibetan students took to the streets in Amdup, and they started in Repong, in the streets of Repong, and they were marching to protest a Chinese government plan, Chinese authorities' plans to replace Tibetan as a medium of instruction by Chinese language. And I think it's very difficult to truly understand how unjust and how unfair and how completely outrageous it is to deny a person their language. And this is exactly what's happening to the Tibetan people. And I think, although it's difficult, I think it's similar to, if we just for a moment imagined French students not being allowed to study in French in their schools, Italian students not being allowed to study in Italian, Nepali students not being allowed to study in Nepali. I think this injustice is at that level, denying somebody their mother tongue.